Hey guys, in this video I want to do a quick little look at keybinds. I think keybinds are something people don't put enough time into. They'll play WoW multiple hours every day, spend tons of time in raids mashing the same keys, but they don't put any thought into how those keys are laid out, if they're laid out optimally. And changing your keybinds, fixing your keybinds is going to allow you to play more smoothly. It's going to make it more fun to play your character. And you're also going to find that you're going to be faster, quicker at important things like interrupting, using defensives. You're going to save your life faster. And yeah, these things are really, really important. All of the things I'm talking about are actually incredibly important in PvP, more so than raid, because of how quick you need to be. I will try and give some examples for both settings, but by default I'll be talking about rotational PvE type abilities, but everything I'm talking about actually is super important in PvP as well. So let's get into it. So first of all, you've got your rotational abilities. We're thinking abilities like Shadow Bolt, Sinister Strike, Arcane Blast, Steady Shot. These are all abilities that should be on a key that's very comfortable to press. For me, the best keys are always going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. And Q, E, and R. Those are going to be my prime keys for rotational abilities. Those are going to be the keys that I am using most often for the abilities that I'm pressing over and over throughout the raid. These need to be keys that you're comfortable pressing for hours on end. You need to be able to go into a raid for 2-3 hours smashing the same ability over and over again. Without it being uncomfortable, without it being out of reach or anything like that. So that's the first thing. Start with the foundation of your rotational abilities and get them on comfortable keys. Now, keys I can recommend to you, and keys throughout the video, I would heavily recommend using these keys. Use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 if you can reach it. Q, E, R, T. You're going to have F, G, Z, X, C, and V. Now, some of these you need to rebind. So, for example, I can't pull up my character page without clicking on character info. To me, it's not that big of a deal to mouse over and click here. I'd much rather have a good keybind in C being used for my rotational abilities rather than, have a better keybind to open my character page. So, heavily would recommend unbinding some of those keys like C, X, C, and V. Prime real estate, really good keys. So from there, we've got our non-rotational abilities. There's two types of abilities here. I'd say really three. You've got your abilities that are off global. So for me, I can show you as I run up and fight this guy. So if I use Battle Shout, you're going to see a lot of my abilities. You can see the cooldown. It spins around. I'm not able to use the ability. Those are on global, which means I can only use most of my abilities like once every 1.5 seconds. But I also have some other abilities. Here I've got, for example, Shield Block I can use in the middle of another ability. I've also got Heroic Strike I can queue up in another ability. So when I'm setting up my character, I'm thinking about all these off-global abilities that I need to be using in my rotation. So think about your character, look at your character. What ability can you use while you're using your normal rotation? What do you need to be pressing? And pre-plan out how you need to line up your abilities. So in this case, kick, right? Kick is the best example that will apply to everyone that has a kick. Most classes have kicks. All of them are off the global cooldown in Wrath. So I need to be able to kick and use another ability at the same time. There I kick and shield slam at the exact same time. It shouldn't even be something you have to worry about. You want your kick to be on an ability or a key that you can press quickly and in combination with other abilities. So that is the best example in kick, but it applies to lots of different abilities. For example, something like a Blood Death Knight. There's this ability called Rune Tap. It gives them a rune. You want to put that on an ability that you can use comfortably because it's going to generate you a rune and you want to use that rune right away. So it needs to be on a comfortable key that you can press in combination with your other skills. For Warrior, another perfect example is Blood Rage. It gives them a resource. You want to be able to use that resource right away. So you want Blood Rage and your rotational abilities to be on keys that are going to be usable at the same time. Okay, cool. So we've talked about those. Now we're going to talk about potentially, those keys that are a little bit easier. Let me actually give more examples of keybinds that are comfortable to use at the same time. So I talked about putting your kick on a key that you can use at the same time. Let me give some actual examples. So if 1, 2, 3, 4 is your core rotation, just think of where your hands are. Like you can place your hands on the keyboard, right? It's going to be kind of tough. There's not that many keys that you can use in combination with those, especially if you're trying to move. So the best place to incorporate any mouse buttons that you may have, any scroll up, scroll down, middle mouse, any of those mouse buttons, the best time to incorporate them is going to be in your off global abilities. So for example here, cleave is an ability I have off global. I can press cleave and shield slam at the same time, and they are on completely separate areas, right? There's no problem using both of them at the same time. My cleave button's on my mouse, my shield slam or my devastate, whatever rotational ability, whatever I'm doing at the time, if I'm pulling a big pack, if I'm thunderclapping, right? If I'm trying to get a group going and I want to spam cleave, I have a different ability that I'm able to use at the same time. So here, I'm able to use my mouse button to press cleave. I'm going to use my mouse button to cleave again, is shockwave, press my mouse button, revenge. And this whole time, I'm using two abilities at the same time without being slowed down at all. That's what you're looking for when it comes to off global abilities. Think about how they're going to be used together. Make sure you can use them together. Cool. That's mostly what needs to be done when it comes to keybinds. Make sure you put the keys that you're not using very much on out-of-the-way keybinds. Now, there's two categories of out-of-the-way keybinds. I would say there's comfortable keys that you're a little slower to press. So for me, I'm not the fastest at pressing something like Control-C. It's a reasonable keybind for me, but I'm going to be able to press something like 1 or 2 a lot faster than Control-C. I have to use two abilities, a modifier in Shift or Control, and then the actual ability. But, something like Berserker Rage is still an ability I'm using about once every 30 seconds, so I still want it on a reasonable key. Whereas something like this Vigilance thing, this is a 30-minute buff I put on someone in my group. I don't need to be pressing that very often, so I have it on Control-F modifiers, and I even have it moved out of the way of my screen so it's not taking up any real estate that I'm looking at when I'm looking at my abilities. So that's another big thing, is move your hour-long abilities you're not using regularly, your resurrection spells, all of these. Move these to keys that you're comfortable pressing or can press, but necessarily don't have to be super comfortable because you're not going to be pressing them that often. Last thing I'll leave you with is I'd heavily recommend reusing the same keybinds on all your characters. So for example, on this character here, all of my characters have CC on T. That's just a typical key. I use my taunt. Every character's taunt that is a tank is always on 5. All of my kicks are on F. My rotational abilities are always 1, 2, 3, 4. My spenders are typically going to be Q or E. I try and keep it consistent across all of my characters. A lot of times I'll put my racial on Control X. So regardless of what class I'm playing, my racial will go there by default unless I have a better reason to have it somewhere else. I'll have my movement abilities on a mouse button. So my charge, my shadow step, these are all going to be keys that I put on that keybind. And just try and make it easier on your brain. Make it easier to think about your abilities, right? Not only reuse keys, but you're going to see how I have my keys laid out here. They are fairly consecutive in how the keys appear on the keyboard. Especially this is going to help if you're newer or you're learning new keybinds. You're going to see I obviously have 1, followed by 2, 3, 4, 5. These are all keys that are sequential on the keyboard. If you look at the next row, I have Q, E, R, T. These are all left to right. F, G, you could say, is still kind of left to right, even though I'm going down a row. Then I have my my abilities here. Now, don't ask me why X is before Z, but Z, X, C, and V are mostly in order. When I give my control buttons, you're going to see Control E, Control T, Control 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all in order. And what this is going to help your brain do is if you see a button light up, or you see you have rage for an ability, or you see something comes off cooldown, and you see it's to the left of R, you know it's E. It's, if you see it's to the left of 2, it's 1. You just have the keys in a row. It's going to make it much easier to learn them. So that's it. Those are my tips. It's pretty simple. The most important thing that people do wrong is they have their off global abilities on keys they cannot press in combination with other abilities. That is the most common issue, is you've got someone like a warrior really struggling to press heroic strike and shield slam at the same time because they put heroic strike on a bad key. And so they're frantically, like, I'll just tell you right now, if I put heroic strike on Control Z, it would be misery. Shield slam, Control Z. Shockwave, Control Z. R, Control Z. T, Control Z. 1, Control Z. Like, I'm constantly having to do a control modifier. It would be miserable. I've got a limited time to get that ability off before the global window. And every time it's slow, it's going to be costing me. So don't do that to yourself. Put those abilities you're using often on comfortable keys. You can, if you're a raider and you have access to Warcraft logs of your character, feel free to look at how many times you're casting each ability in a raid. You can also use like a details add-on and check how many casts you have of certain damaging abilities by total count. Take a look at that and just kind of get an idea. Maybe you're underestimating how often you're using certain abilities. Maybe you should be changing some of your keybinds to keys that are more comfortable. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is that your keys are comfortable. You can press them, and just make it so that when you're playing the game, you don't even have to think about your keybinds or anything like that. You just are smoothly flowing. You're pressing the keys as you think of them. So hopefully this helps you set up your alts. Hopefully this helps you set up more comfortable keybinds. Let me know if you have any questions about specific characters. I tried to give some examples for different types of characters, but if you play a warlock or a hunter or a mage, whatever it is, and you've got some keys that you've got some questions about, just let me know, and I will give you some suggestions on how you could potentially set up your keybinds. So thanks for watching, guys. That is it. Let me know if you have any suggestions on more stuff to do potentially on the Wrath beta. Just questions in general, video ideas. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.